Well, Pursuit Attractions and Hospitality is the Denver-based owner of Global Destinations and Lodges, which owns the Banff Gondola among its holdings. It recently made an acquisition in Jasper National Park. We're joined from New York by David Barry. He's CEO of Pursuit Attractions and Hospitality. David, thanks a lot for joining us. There's been lots of news with your company recently. Tell us about the most recent developments.
Well, we were part of a conglomerate that had many different businesses in it. And over the last, I would say, 7 months, the board has worked really hard on a transition. So we sold our sister business, GES, which positions Pursuit as a pure play attractions and hospitality company with a focus on iconic locations around the world. So that transaction closed on the 31st of December. And we have changed our ticker symbol from VVI to PRSU. And it really simplifies and clarifies our story to investors.
And some of your holdings are in an iconic part of this country, a place where people around the country and, in fact, around the world love to go to, Banff and Jasper. Tell us what you've got there.
So we go from Golden, British Columbia into Banff and up the Icefields Parkway to Jasper. And so whether it's a combination of hotel properties or, for instance, the Banff Gondola, Moline Lake Boat Company, the Glacier Skywalk, and so on. So we have several businesses throughout the Canadian Rockies that we operate successfully, and we have some really beautiful locations.
What kind of a country is Canada to operate in from your point of view?
Well, as a Canadian who actually ended up moving to the U.S., I mean, Canada's an amazing country to operate in. And I mean, there's so much that is unique to Canada, and obviously visitors from around the world. We, have guests that visit us from probably, 80 countries around the world. And so, Canada is an iconic destination. It has so much natural beauty, but also there's this unique aspect of hospitality that's truly Canadian. So what we work on that quite hard is just as authentic as we can be, delivering experiences that are unique to the place.
David, what can you tell us about your core customer and your go-to-market strategy? Is it sort of the early, young adventure traveler, or is it an older, more affluent traveler? And are you working with the aggregators like Expedia and Booking, or going directly using influencers, or something else altogether?
It's a combination. So obviously we have tour and travel partners that we work with on a global basis that have long histories of coming to Canada and Canada as a destination, whether that be from across Asia or across Western Europe. And then you have regional visitors that might be visiting an attraction, from the Calgary market or the Edmonton market. You have destination visitors that are coming from again, the United States or Western Europe. So it really is a combination of our tour and travel partner guests, individual travelers. We do work with all of the online travel agencies and others that really position Canada on a global stage.
Brian, Madden and I have been talking about the Canadian dollar and the exchange rate with the U.S. dollar earlier this morning. As you know, the Canadian dollar trading at multi-decade lows, really. It's only been sub 70 cents 4 times since the mid-90s or so. And Brian made the point that you can stretch way back much further than that. We are at historic lows on the Canadian dollar. Is that a good thing for your company? It certainly makes travel to Canada a whole lot more attractive from the United States and from many places in the world.
Yeah, as a student of currency exchange, what's interesting for me, so I have a long history of tourism in Canada, whether it's within the ski world where I spent 3 decades. So from Mont Tremblant to Whistler with Intrawest, and then moved to the US in 97 as Intrawest grew. But one of the things you'll see if you look over the history of currency fluctuations with the Canadian dollar is when the Canadian dollar is low, tourism tends to boom, and the world knows that Canada is an amazing destination, and this is an opportunity to access that destination for a lower price than you normally would. So our experience in our history is that when the Canadian dollar weakens, that drives visitation and excitement for guests to come to Canada.
David, what's your appetite to expand outside of your core geographies? And, the related question I guess I want to ask is, how strategic is it to be established in cold climate, high altitude places where you are at a time when we're hearing about, the lower Alps potentially not being viable ski destinations in 20, 30, 40 years?
Yeah, luckily we're not in skiing. So I mean, what's interesting in our world is that our peak season is May through October. So we have a summer focus. Vast majority of our business occurs in the late second quarter calendar through the third quarter and into a little bit of the fourth quarter. So as we look to expand, we operate today in 3 countries, the United States, Canada, and Iceland. And so our growth strategy is to continue to look for iconic, unforgettable locations around the world, places with perennial demand that have high barriers to entry, in countries with good rule of law and good property protection. And so we view that there's lots of opportunity to grow on a global basis and to really deliver authentic hospitality in those markets.
Okay, let's finish with what your message to investors is. What investors want to see from publicly traded companies, of course, is rising levels of profitability and consistent profit growth. What is your message to investors?
Yeah, we have a 10-year track record of driving growth as Pursuit. And so we will work hard. We now have a clean balance sheet. We've been able to retire some expensive corporate debt and a preferred equity position. So we come out of this transaction and repositioning for the company with a clean balance sheet, with strong capacity to grow, with a super organized and effective team of team members from across Canada, the US, and Iceland. So we're poised for growth. We've maintained and worked hard on a pipeline for the future, and we have opportunities within the business, and we also have opportunities on the acquisition side. So we're excited about the future.